Warning disclaimer. This story, I thought it was just a massage, I was so wrong, is a fictional emotional narrative intended for mature audiences. It explores themes of emotional vulnerability, blurred boundaries, and personal healing. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. This story may contain content that could be triggering for some readers, including emotional manipulation and non-consensual advances in a professional setting. Reader discretion is advised. The purpose of this story is to shed light on hidden emotional experiences and to highlight the importance of recognizing and respecting personal boundaries in all relationships, especially those involving care and trust. It had been a draining month. Maya sat in her office cubicle, eyes glued to the screen, but her mind elsewhere. The emails, meetings, and endless pressure at work had sucked all energy from her. Her shoulders ached, her back was stiff, and her emotions were flat, like she had nothing left to give. Her friend had recommended a new wellness center that had recently opened in town, Serenity Touch Spa. "Just go, Maya. You need it," she had said. Maya wasn't usually the type to pamper herself, but something inside her finally whispered, maybe it's time. She booked an appointment. Maya lay down on the table and tried to push the day out of her mind. The moment Armin's hands began working on her shoulders, she felt something shift, not just in her body, but in her mind. The tightness began to melt, not just physically, but emotionally too. "You carry a lot of stress," he said softly, working on the knots in her back. Maya smiled faintly. "Tell me about it." He chuckled. "You're safe here. Just breathe." It wasn't just the touch. It was the way he said it. Like he meant it. Like he saw more than just her stiff muscles. By the end of the hour, Maya felt lighter. A little more whole. When she sat up, Armin handed her a glass of lemon water and asked, "Same time next week?" She hesitated for a moment, then she had no idea how wrong she was. Maya didn't know why she was excited for the next session. All week, her mind kept drifting back to Armin's hands, his voice, and especially his words, "You're safe here." It echoed in her ears when she sat alone in her apartment, when the silence got too loud, and even when she tried to sleep. Something about that hour with him had shifted something in her chest, something she didn't fully understand. By the time Saturday came, she was already 10 minutes early to the spa. Her heart beat a little faster when she saw him walking out of another session, wiping his hands and laughing politely with another client. He noticed her and smiled. Right on time. His tone felt familiar, gentle but personal. Like he remembered her not just as a client, but as someone worth remembering. This time, Maya noticed that he asked different kinds of questions. "How was your week? Still carrying that same stress? Are you sleeping better?" She found herself opening up more than she usually did, even more. "You have a beautiful laugh, by the way," he said one day while folding the towel near her. "You should use it more." Maya blushed. "Not much to laugh about lately." "Well," he smiled, "we'll have to fix that." It wasn't flirtatious, not yet. But it wasn't strictly professional either. It hovered somewhere in between. And that in-between space started to grow each week. After each session, Maya left feeling a little more whole and a little more confused. Was this just expert care, or was something deeper blooming between them? It was subtle, unspoken, but real. One evening, as she left the spa and sat in her car, she caught herself smiling at nothing, her hand brushing her lips like something had touched them, though nothing had. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "It's just a massage, Maya. That's all it is." But even then, deep down, she already knew it was becoming something more. Maya couldn't explain the anticipation she felt each Saturday now. It wasn't just about relaxation, it was about Armin. The way he greeted her with warmth in his eyes. The way he remembered the smallest things like her love for jasmine tea or how she hated the ticking sound of clocks. It felt like he saw her, not just her body, but the woman inside the silence. That week, something felt different from the moment she stepped into the room. The lighting was slightly dimmer than usual. The music slower. Softer. Even the scent had changed, jasmine instead of lavender. Her favorite. "You remembered," she said, smiling as she slipped off her sandals. "I always do," Armin replied, his tone gentler than usual. She lay on the table, the sheet draped lightly over her. His hands moved across her back with practiced care, but this time, they lingered. Just a moment longer than they should. Not enough to be inappropriate, but enough for her to notice. His fingertips traced the base of her neck more slowly, almost like a whisper. She felt her body tighten, not from discomfort, but from confusion. It was a massage. But it also wasn't. Long week, he asked, his voice close to her ear. Yes, exhausting, she murmured. His hands paused. You don't deserve to feel that way. That sentence hung in the air like perfume, intoxicating and heavy. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his hands pull her deeper into a space that felt both safe and dangerous. Near the end of the session, as he worked along her arms, his thumb brushed over the inside of her wrist and stayed there a moment. You're always so tense, he said, gently wrapping her hand in both of his. Like you're afraid to fall apart. Maya swallowed. Her throat was dry. Her heartbeat too loud in her ears. I guess I am, she whispered. Armin didn't say anything for a moment. Then his voice dropped slightly. You don't have to be. Not here. It should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt intimate in a way that left her unsure. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just let him finish the session. When she sat up, he offered her a bottle of water, his hand brushing against hers as she took it. Their eyes met, and in that split second, something unspoken passed between them. Maya left the spa that evening with trembling fingers and a buzzing mind. She tried to tell herself again, it's just a massage. But her body told her otherwise. Her heart told her otherwise. And most terrifying of all, her silence told her, just wanted to check in. Hope you're sleeping better this week. Armin, she stared at the message for a long moment, her heart thudding. She never gave him her number. She had filled it in on the spa's intake form, meant for administrative use only. Still, she replied, thank you. That's kind of you. His response came quickly. Kindness has nothing to do with it. I just care. Her breath caught in her chest. She put the phone down but didn't sleep that night. Over the next few days, his messages became more frequent. Sometimes just a good morning, other times a quote about healing or strength. Once, a picture of a jasmine flower captioned, reminded me of you. Maya didn't know how to feel. Flattered? Nervous? Confused? All of it. She wasn't used to being seen, especially not by someone who spoke to her soul in gentle fragments. But it didn't feel right. She confided in no one. It was too complicated. The next session felt heavier before it even began. As soon as Armin greeted her, there was a charged energy in the air. His smile lingered, his eyes followed her a bit longer than they used to. When she lay down, she felt her muscles clench instinctively. His hands were warm. Soothing. But they carried a different kind of weight this time. He whispered more. Complimented more. You have the softest skin, he said, running his palm down her arm. I notice everything about you. She didn't respond. She didn't want to encourage it. But she didn't move either. Her silence wasn't consent. It was confusion. It was fear. It was paralyzing. When he gently adjusted the towel and his hands brushed too far down her lower back, she froze. She wanted to say something, but her voice betrayed her. Her mind screamed stop, but her lips stayed sealed. The session ended, but nothing felt right anymore. Armin smiled as he helped her off the table, offering her water like he always did. But even the smallest touch now felt loaded. You're glowing today, he said softly, brushing a loose hair from her cheek. Beautiful. Maya didn't smile. She nodded, whispered thanks, and left. In the car, she stared at her trembling hands gripping the steering wheel. The lines had blurred so slowly, so gently, that she hadn't noticed they were gone. It wasn't just a massage anymore. It had become something else. And she didn't know how to name it. Maya sat in her car for a long time that day. The massage was over. She had left the spa. But something had followed her home, an invisible shadow of discomfort clinging to her skin. Her thoughts twisted around themselves like vines. One moment she told herself he was just being kind. The next, she felt her stomach churn, remembering his fingers lingering on her waist, his voice brushing against her like a breath she never invited. She didn't cancel the next appointment. She told herself she needed the relief. The muscle pain was real. Her body was tired. But deep down, something else made her return. Curiosity? Loneliness? Guilt? She didn't know. That Saturday, Armin was already waiting at the door when she arrived. He greeted her like always, but this time, he didn't step back to give her space. He stood close, almost too close, and said, "I've been counting the days." Maya forced a smile and walked in. The air inside felt heavier now. The room was the same candlelight, soft music, the familiar smell of jasmine, but it didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like a beautiful cage. She undressed behind the curtain, wrapped the towel around herself, and lay on the table like always. But today was different. From the beginning, Armin's touch was slower, more deliberate. He traced the edges of her shoulder blades with his thumbs, and then let his palms drift downward, too far, too soon. His hands pressed against the top of her hips, lingering there. Maya tensed. She didn't say anything. "Relax," he whispered, sensing her hesitation. "I know your body now. I know where it hurts." She wanted to speak. She wanted to move. But her mind was caught in a storm, flashes of past kindness battling against the present discomfort. Was she overreacting? Was it her fault for letting this go on? Then came the moment she couldn't explain away. Armin's hand slid slightly under the towel at her thigh, not far, but far enough. Maya's body flinched. "Don't," she said quietly. He froze. Just for a second. Then he moved his hand back up and kept massaging her shoulders as if nothing had happened. The rest of the session passed in silence, but her breathing was shaky, her fingers curled into the table, her chest tight with shame and fear. When it ended, he helped her sit up, handing her the water. His hand brushed hers again. "I didn't mean to upset you," he said gently. "You looked like you needed more today." Maya couldn't speak. She nodded. She left. Once outside, she walked past her car, into a side alley behind the building, and sat on the cold concrete. "And they're hidden from everyone," she cried. Not because of what he did, but because she didn't stop it sooner. And she hated that part of herself for being so quiet. The days that followed were a blur of silence and self-doubt. Maya stopped answering her phone. She muted her work chats, let her dishes pile up, and sat in the same spot on her couch for hours, staring at nothing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that dim room. Felt his hands again. Heard his voice telling her to relax. It made her stomach twist in a way that had nothing to do with physical pain. She didn't return to the spa. She also didn't report him. Because how could she explain it? There had been no violence. No force. Nothing dramatic. Just soft touches that went a little too far. Words that felt sweet until they stung. Glances that once made her feel seen but now made her feel exposed. She kept replaying it, wondering if she had led him on. Maybe she had smiled too much. Maybe she shouldn't have replied to his texts. Maybe it was her fault for not saying no louder. Maybe, just maybe, she had imagined it all. But no. Deep down, she knew. Something sacred had been violated. And the worst part? She let it happen. She let it build. She trusted him. That trust now sat in her chest like broken glass. One evening, she stood under the hot water of her shower, letting it pour down on her back like it could wash away what she didn't have words for. Suddenly, her knees buckled. She sank to the floor, the water hitting her face, and she sobbed no, wailed from a place so deep inside her that even she didn't know it existed. It wasn't just Armin's touch that haunted her. It was her silence, her helplessness, her need to be seen and her shame for wanting that at all. She cried until her skin was wrinkled and her voice was raw. The next morning, her friend Zara messaged her again, like she had for the past few days. "Are you okay? You've disappeared, Maya. I'm worried. Talk to me." This time, Maya responded. "Can I come over?" When Zara opened the door, Maya broke again. Right there in her arms. She couldn't even form full sentences. Just fragments. It was supposed to be safe. "I didn't say no fast enough. Maybe I asked for it." Zara held her tighter and pulled her inside. Stop. No. You didn't ask for anything. You were vulnerable. He crossed a line. That's on him, not you. Maya wept again. But this time, she didn't feel alone. That night, for the first time in weeks, she slept. Not peacefully. Not without dreams. But at least she wasn't pretending anymore. The next morning, Maya sat in Zara's kitchen, cradling a warm mug of tea between her palms. Her eyes were swollen from the night before, her voice hoarse from crying. But something inside her had shifted, a quiet resolve. She wasn't okay yet, but she was done pretending. Zara sat across from her, calm and patient. Maya, she said gently, I think you need to tell someone. What he did, what he's doing, it's wrong. It's not just unethical. It's a violation. Maya looked down. But I let it go on for weeks. I didn't stop him. I even replied to his texts. That doesn't matter, Zara said firmly. You trusted him. That's the whole point of that room. You were supposed to be safe. And he took advantage of that. You have every right to speak up. Maya's hands trembled around the cup. What if no one believes me? Zara reached over and squeezed her hand. Then I'll be there beside you. Every step of the way. It took a few more days for Maya to gather the courage, but eventually, she called the spa. Her voice shook as she asked to speak with the manager. The woman on the other end, Mrs. Kaleem, was polite but guarded. I'm sorry to hear that, Ms. Maya. Can you please explain what happened? So Maya did. For the first time, fully and clearly, she told someone everything. The slow erosion of boundaries. The lingering touches. The text messages. The way Armin whispered things that made her freeze. How he crossed a line under the safety of soft music and dim lights. How she had said don't, and he didn't stop, just adjusted. The phone line was quiet for a long moment after she finished. Then Mrs. Kaleem responded, Ms. Maya, thank you for coming forward. What you've described is deeply concerning and completely unacceptable. We'll begin an internal investigation immediately. This is not the first concern we've received about Armin, but yours is the most detailed. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Maya didn't know what to feel. Relief? Anger? Sadness? Maybe all of them at once. The tears returned, but this time they were different. They came not from shame, but from release. Later that week, she received a follow-up email. Armin's contract had been terminated. His license had been reported to the regulatory board for further review. Zara hugged her when she read it aloud. You did it. You spoke your truth. It doesn't fix everything, Maya said softly. No, Zara agreed. But it's the first step. That night, Maya wrote everything down in her journal, every detail, every emotion. Not just for closure, but because her story deserved to be heard, even if only by her own hands. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel small. She felt brave. Weeks had passed since Maya reported Armin. The days weren't easy. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some mornings she woke up feeling stronger. Other mornings, she curled back under the covers, too drained to move. But something had changed to something real. For the first time, she was moving forward, even if slowly. She started seeing a therapist. At first, it felt awkward, like trying to explain a storm to someone who hadn't seen the rain. But her therapist listened without judgment. Together, they unraveled the tangled emotions Maya had buried for so long. The guilt, the confusion, the craving for connection, the heartbreak of betrayal. It wasn't about the massage, Maya confessed one day, tears pooling in her eyes. It was about feeling seen, and then being used. Her therapist nodded. That's what makes emotional violations so hard to process. You were vulnerable. And he exploited that trust. Each session brought her a little more clarity. A little more peace. Zara remained by her side throughout, her rock, her mirror, her reminder that Maya was not alone. They started going on walks together again. They laughed at silly things, tried new cafes, and bit by bit, Maya remembered what it felt like to simply exist without fear. One afternoon, as she sipped coffee on her balcony, Maya looked at her phone. It was a Saturday. Her old appointment time. For a moment, she froze. But this time, There was no dread. No ache. Just a memory. She opened her notes app and began to type, not for work, not for a report, but for herself. To the woman I was in that room, you were not weak. You were not to blame. You were hopeful. You were human. And now you're healing. She closed the app, inhaled deeply, and let the breeze wrap around her like an old friend. Maya didn't erase the past. She didn't forget what happened. But she stopped blaming herself for it. She stopped letting it define her. Armin had taken something from her, but he didn't take everything. He didn't take her strength. He didn't take her ability to rebuild. And rebuild she did. She joined a support group for women who had experienced emotional manipulation and boundary violations. She even shared her story, nervously at first, but then boldly. Not as a victim, but as a survivor. Months later, Maya walked past the spa. It had new signage, new staff. She didn't look away. She didn't panic. She simply kept walking, head high, steps steady. Because it was no longer a place that held power over her. It was just a building. And she was no longer the woman who walked in there thinking it was just a massage. She was the woman who walked out stronger, wiser, whole. 65.